Now it is my great privilege and honor to introduce our chief guest today, Honorable Dr. Karan Singh ji. Dr. Karan Singh is, of course, a well known figure, a leading statesman, educationist, philanthropist, philosopher, cultural ambassador, poet, and author. He has been in his many avatars the first governor of Jammu and Kashmir and the chairperson trustee of the Dharmath Trust. He has been a union minister for education and culture, health, civil aviation, and tourism, and a member of the Rajya Sabha representing the National Capital Territory of Delhi. He also served as India's ambassador to the United States of America, was president of the Indian Council for Cultural Relations and of the India International Center, and chancellor of Banaras Hindu University for 3 terms. He counts among his special interests Hinduism, the environment, education, and interfaith harmony. Dr. Karan Singh received the Padma Vibhushan in 2005 for his exceptional and distinguished service and monumental contributions to the country. I invite Dr. Karan Singh to deliver his address. I would once again request all of you to put your phones on silent mode. Thank you.
Thank you for that very generous introduction. Minister Rajkumar Ranjan Singh, delighted to meet you. I've never had opportunity of visiting Manipur, but we have a little controversy. We claim that polo was developed in Ladakh, and they claim it was developed in Manipur. So I think both are correct. I'm not quite sure which one is which. Major General Gupta, the indefatigable chairman of INTAC, the vice chairman, Dr. Saryu Doshi, member secretary, Dr. Sudan Mishra, Shri O.P. Jain, whom I have christened many years ago. I call him Sanskriti Purusha. But this one man has done so much for culture. It is unbelievable. I cannot think of another individual who has done so much in so many fields. And of course, all the other authors, and a very bright young historian who came up with some good ideas. I have to discuss them with you in detail someday, because I've also been interested in this field. What a joy it is to be back in INTAC as a founder member of this organization. I remember literally seeing it from its very birth, and it has grown, what now, four decades, you'll be 40 years, and it's extraordinary what they've done. They are one of those, I would say, one of the perhaps the finest NGO in India. It's big deal to say. The only other one that I can think of with which I'm also associated is SPICMACAY. They've also done a lot of work in the field of education and culture. But INTAC, I think, is quite unique. And what you, Jan Saab, and your team of conveners have achieved is something of which we're all proud. One other thing that they do, of course, is very good, is the way they restore these paintings. At your Alliance Francaise Center, I have had all the paintings of my ancestors, which are about 100 years old, restored beautifully, and they're absolutely good as new. So restoration is also a very important function, which not very many people do in India. We either botch up the restoration and spoil the original, but it's a very delicate art, and I think that is something which INTAC also does. Now, 220 chapters around India. That is very impressive. And these beautiful publications, I saw just some time ago, they sent me the historical study of Zanskar, Kargil, and Ladakh. And this has never been done before. There's Binoy Boy Behel, of course, who's taken a lot of beautiful photographs. But this is a very important book because it brings to light the richness of these areas which are so far away. Although we conquered them, it's a Dogra state that we made. Our ancestors were the ones who brought them into India. But nobody knows anything about them. And when you see the sculptures and the statues of the Buddha, it's an amazing thing. And these sort of in-depth studies on various aspects and various historical sites, I think, are going to be tremendously important for future historians, you made the point, candidly, that there's not enough material. This is the sort of material which I think needs to be produced increasingly, which will help not only archaeologists but also historians and cultural activists, because this is all a part of the combined uh, genius of India. I mean, we have such a extraordinary richness. I don't think I've traveled around the world, but I cannot think of another single country which has as varied and as rich a culture as India has. I'm not trying to be sort of chauvinistic, but I'm making a point. I mean, many countries have, for example, Egypt has these marvelous, you go on the Nile and you see these great statues, and they have one thing, but the sort of from all the way from Zanskar down to Kerala and all the way from Gujarat all the way up to Manipur and beyond. It's extraordinary. So many languages, so many cultures, so many cuisines. I mean, the food differs everywhere. And for example, music, Hindustani music, Karnataka music, instrumental, vocal, and folk music. I myself have sung several songs, Minister, which have been on the radio and recorded in my mother tongue, Dogri, which is a small language, with small meaning not very many people speak it, but it is in the eighth schedule. And so folk music is something tremendously important because it gives us a sense of the grassroots culture of a certain area. So there's music. Sculpture, I mean, it's extraordinary from Ajanta and Ellora, the sculptures down to Satish Gujral. I mean, modern sculpture, ancient sculpture, and the great artifact, of course, Minister, I feel, is the Nataraja. I think the Nataraja is the greatest single artifact produced by Indian culture. Uh, I don't want to give a lecture on Nataraja. I could perhaps. It's fascinating, but that'll take up all my time. But Nataraja Nityavasane Nataraja Rayo Nanada Dhakkam No Panchavaram Uddhartu Kaman Sadakadi Siddhan Hedat Vimarshe Shiva Sutra Jalam. It was 14 times the Shiva played the drum, which created this whole Sanskrit language. And so it's a glorious thing. I must tell you one thing, Mr. Next time you visit Pondicherry, I have built a small Nataraj pyramid temple. Pyramid was a great artifact of the Egyptians, and Nataraj is a great artifact of India. I've combined them. I built a small temple in the form of these, like the pyramids, and inside I put the Nataraja. Great combination. You must see it, because I'm just saying that cultures can mingle and can mix. There's no reason why we cannot have a Hindu icon in a Egyptian temple. So culture is universal in some ways. Culture cuts across barriers. The minister mentioned quite rightly Southeast Asia. I mean, you must go there and see the tremendous impact that India has had. The largest temple in the world, Jansa, is Angkor Wat, 1 square kilometer of temples. And they were all Hindu temples. They were Shaiva, they were Vaishnava, they were and Buddhist temple. Luckily, the Buddhists never destroyed anything. All they did was to try and put the Buddhist symbols on top of them. And they've been looked after. I mean, that temple itself is a wonder. You can't imagine it unless you see it for yourself. Or you go to a Muslim country, Indonesia, 98% Muslim. The way they have maintained the temples in Java, there's the temple, there's Brahma, Vishnu temple, Brahma temple, and Shiva temple. I mean, it's beautifully maintained. They were damaged in the earthquake, and we offered help from India. They said, "No, thank you very much. We'll look after it ourselves." So look at the way that this cuts across all these ridiculous religious things that are beginning to emerge, which are trying to divide humanity rather than unify humanity. And Borobudur, the Borobudur is Bhadra Vihar. It's upper branch of Bhadra Vihara, the Great Vihara. That is an extraordinary building. I mean, मेरे तो रोंगटे खड़े हो जाते हैं when I think of these places. It's really quite extraordinary. And Parambaran is Param Brahman. So Parambaran is Param Brahman, and Bhorobadur is Bhadra Vihara. And the this Chulalongkorn University is Chulalankara. One Shiva who carries the Alankar on his forehead. So Chulalankar is from Chulalongkorn. They may not even know about it. But the impact of Indian culture through Hinduism, through Buddhism, on these countries is extraordinary. And Central Asia also, I've been to some countries. Unfortunately, most of those were looted from India. We're not so in South and Southeast Asia. They went peacefully. They went through merchants. They went through scholars. Anyhow, whatever it is, the treasures are there. And I entirely agree with you that we should travel more. I'm not sure whether Intact can do anything in it or not, but certainly somebody should do something about it. And then painting. From the Ajanta cave, the painting that the frescoes are extraordinary. From there down to Hussain and Raza and Ram Kumar, whose paintings, and I just got a new catalog. They're selling for millions. Nobody can buy them any longer. No Indian can buy them at least. 2-2.5 crore ke, 3 crore ke. But they are there. They are also part of. So look at how we've covered these 5,000 years, and how we are still creative. Even today, our paintings. Then you come to sculpture, for the architecture. The architecture, I was just seeing again some photographs of the great ruins of Mohenjo-daro, which are in danger because of the rains. And that great bath there, I mean, it's astounding. पता नहीं इकट्ठे नहाते थे कि अलग अलग. Who would bathe though? Either the whole city was bathing in that. It's so huge. And the way they plan their lines, their town planning, far superior to what we are doing. We've destroyed our towns. We've shut all the natural exits. So flood to hoga hi hoga. What else will happen? Where will the water go? The water is not going to evaporate. Srinagar, for example, I tell you one of my hometowns. I remember when I was a boy, the Dal Lake was 3 times the size of what it was today. They've encroached there, one high rag, 1/3. They've built on all the exits, all the channels, which were natural hydrology of the valley. It all used to go out and go into the Buller Lake. Ab wo sab band kar diya, they've built on them. All the Gandhi Nagars and the Jawahar Nagars and the Netaji Nagars and all, naam to sabka hai. But it's a criminal act because you are actually destroying the hydrology of the city. No, pehle to what used to happen, minister, was that एक मोहल्ला डूब जाता था. अब तो शहर के शहर डूब जाते. I mean, the whole city is drowned. Bangalore drowned, Delhi drowned, Srinagar drowned. There's a whole list of cities that have drowned. So what are we doing? I mean, we're certainly far behind the Indus Valley, Saraswati Valley civilization as far as architecture is concerned. And so from that, all those buildings down to Corbusier and modern architecture. So in all of these, we have a unique history. And as has rightly been mentioned by Jen Gupta, this is a joint responsibility. It's a joint responsibility of governments, central and state, of NGOs like Intact, and of private citizens. You see, unless you have that coalition, you will not get to it. You see, the government of India's own organizations are fairly well, but I'm sure the minister will agree they are not given enough money. And the state governments ki to buri halat. They say we don't have any money. So actually, all the architecture is in the states. The centers only have few union territories. The states are the prime users and prime movers, and they're never adequately funded because this is something they think some kind of fad. So unless we change our priorities, Rajkumarji, unless we realize that culture and education and health are the very basis of a great nation. Our health infrastructure is pitiable. Look at the way it collapsed in the first. It recovered very well, I agree, and full credit to the doctors and the medical fraternity. But it collapsed like a pack of cards. So unless you see, we don't put in enough money into our these three areas: the area of culture, the area of health, the area of education. Because everything has to start with education. Unless we educate our younger people and the younger communities into the importance of culture, uh, and the net result of all that we're doing is that, as I said, I wrote an article the other day. There are three existential threats to the human race today. The first is the climate change, and it's already there. We're already in the midst of it. All that you're seeing, these erratic weather, and look at the way Europe is burning. America, the richest country in the world, thousands of acres just burn. No, they can't do anything about it. The glaciers are melting. The seas are rising. Half a dozen nations are going to disappear under the water within the next few years. So we've got to do whatever we can to salvage the world. If you go back to the Atharva Veda, there's a Bhumi Suktam. 63 verses in the Atharva Veda are the most comprehensive statement of environmental values you'll find anywhere in the world. So we have the heritage. Therefore, there used to be this is a sacred tank, ये देवी का बन है, ये शिव जी की बावली है. The whole point was people would realize the importance. That's all gone now. So we have to have a major relook at what's happening. And unless the common citizen becomes involved in cultural work, it won't work. Other people think we are imposing things upon them. They should be proud. This is Hamara. It's beginning to happen now, I see, but it will take some time. Sarkar mentioned, I was on the UNESCO Executive Board for 8 years as India's delegate. And UNESCO is doing splendid work, also short of money, as usual, but they are doing good work. And we had several of our national tangible and intangible. For example, now the Durga Puja has become an intangible heritage. I think it's a marvelous idea. Vibrant city. What is this? Is that a reaction of people to what I said? And suddenly, like, these interventions are extraordinary. Let me tell you a story. Freud and Jung, as you know, were two great psychologists. And they were sitting in a room, and suddenly there was a crack, and the table cracked. And Jung said to Freud, within 5 minutes, there's going to be another crack. They sat, and 5 minutes later, crack. And Freud went absolutely white, because he didn't accept anything that was out of the normal. He thought everything was within human psychology. It isn't. There are many forces and many interesting forces outside our knowledge. Some of them pleasant, some of them unpleasant, mind you. So we better look out. So I don't want to, I can go on and on forever, but I just want to really close by Ilsa very warmly congratulating you. मैं बहुत प्रभावित हूँ जो आप कर रहे हैं. I'm really very deeply impressed by what Intac is doing. And all these conveners have come from the grassroots. They are people who actually work on the ground. So I welcome you all. I'm very glad this is probably the first opportunity I've had to really meet with all of you together. I've had little functions here and there. पहली बार मिला हूँ. So what do we say? What do we say to the younger generation? You keep saying a young man, young man. I was also a young man at one time, don't worry. I mean, I'm now 91 by God's grace, but I started my my career at the age of 18. I became head of state at the age of 18. So I'm not impressed with 27. Let me say, what can I tell? I want to end with a verse, a very beautiful verse from the Kathopanishad. which Swami Vivekananda also used to quote very frequently. It exhorts us, particularly the younger generation, awake, arise, and move across the razor edged path. There are no simple solutions now, Rajkumarji, either for individual salvation or for collective salvation. It's a difficult and dangerous path. But it is across that path that we have to go to reach our goal. Our goal is a new consciousness, a new India, a new world. So this is the shloka. Uttishtata, Jagrata, Prapya Varan Nibodhata, Kshurasya Dhara Dishita Duratya, Durgam Pathasat Kavayo Vatate. Thank you. Namaskar.
Thank you, sir. It is always such a pleasure to hear you and learn from your wealth of knowledge and vast experience. We are delighted and grateful for this opportunity to have been able to hear your views and glean a better understanding of our cultural and philosophical moorings. Thank you also for your words of wisdom and encouragement. I'm confident they will motivate us to keep up our efforts in the field of heritage conservation with commitment and passion. You are truly an inspiration. So, thank you once again.